move this over a little bit. It really is straight. So, first of all, thank you all for being here. Wasn't that many years ago that if you were told there was going to be a Vietnam veteran speaking, you'd been home watching Fox News or something. So times have changed a little bit, and again, very much appreciate you being here. Those of you that are Vietnam veterans, I'm probably not going to teach you a whole lot or cover a whole lot, but anytime you have a question or if I'm not clear about something, please stick your hand up. If I don't see your hand, shout out. I don't see it as an interruption. I see it as being able to answer questions. And when it comes to questions, nothing is sacred. No question will not be answered. So again, just please don't hesitate to interrupt me if you have a question or a problem. I flew for the 237th Medical Detachment, which is what our call sign. Can I have the lights out, Marcia? Call sign was dust off. The 1st Cavalry Division, they wanted to be called medevac, but about 90% of the helicopters in Vietnam with the Red Cross were called dust off. We all used the same radio frequency. Anytime somebody got in trouble, they could go up to that frequency, call for a dust off. They would either get a home base or they would get an aircraft in the air or whatever. And I would venture a guess that there's not a Vietnam veteran that doesn't know what dust off is, what we did. The call sign was just purely by chance. And it seemed to be very reminiscent of what we were doing or describe what we were doing. For you youngsters especially, I know sometimes in school they just completely ignore Vietnam. They're taking it out of our children's school books. Libraries are pulling books about Vietnam off the shelf. So where we're at, get my little pointer, where we're at is, right? Okay, we are over here. Uh-oh. Oh no, that's the power button for the cake. I didn't even think about that. All right, that's going to be fun. Because it took a while for this puppy to power up. Oh boy. If I can give the presentation, it sure means a lot more when you can see what I'm talking about. I still don't have any power to project. Best laid plans of mice and men. Yeah. Well, I got power to, okay, we got power to the projector. All right, well, we're just going to talk then. Vietnam, Southeast Asia, not far from China, not far from the Philippines, north of Australia, for those of you that aren't familiar with it. But it was a civil war is the reason we were there. The Democratic Republic of South Vietnam wanted to remain a democratic republic. The North wanted to be combine North and South Vietnam together. They were ruled by the communists. We are a republic. We're not a democracy. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. They were a republic, and we wanted to help them remain that way. I hope this comes up before it's all over. We flew scout helicopters. We flew gunships. We flew cargo helicopters, the big Chinooks with the dual rotors. Those were all different aircraft that we flew. But when you think of the Vietnam War, you think of the Huey. You think of that aircraft right there and the one that we've got out here with the American Huey 369. Those of you that remember the movie MASH or the TV show MASH, that was a Bell OH-13. We called it a Sioux. Army helicopters are named after Indian tribes. And the Army realized the value of medical evacuation helicopters. The aircraft was a great little aircraft, but once you got your 2 patients on the outboard litters, that was all that helicopter could carry, the pilot and those 2 patients. It was very underpowered, but it did the job very well. The other difference was that the aircraft was not picking up wounded during battle. It was picking them up at a forward aid station. They were stabilized at the forward aid station, and then they were taken to the main hospital. But again, because the Army recognized the value, they put out the contract. They wanted a helicopter with an enclosed cabin, 2 pilots, a turbine engine, an onboard medic, onboard crew chief, the guy who maintained the aircraft. If you're going to maintain the aircraft, you're going to fly along in it. So we're kind of sure that that it was better maintained. So, but that was how the Huey came about. And fortunately for us, the Huey won the contract. Now, as I said, all Army helicopters are named after Indian tribes. Who knows where the Huey tribe is? Okay, there is none. All right. Now you 369 guys, you're not allowed to answer these questions. All right. Anybody know what the Indian name, the Native American name is? Yeah. Anybody? Shout it out. Iroquois. Right. Well, how did you get the name Huey? Anybody? Originally, it was an HU-1, Helicopter Utility 1, first generation, whatever. HU-1 looks like HUI, Huey. So now it's a UH-1, Utility Helicopter 1. But that name stuck, even though it became a UH-1. However, I misstated, there is one helicopter that is not named after an Indian tribe. And again, 369 guys are not allowed to answer. What's the one? Cobra. Very good. Why? Why doesn't it have an Indian name? Among other things, the Cobra has a Huey tail boom, Huey engine, transmission, tail rotor, main rotor, modified 540 system, but it was designed as a Huey Cobra. So technically, the Cobra is an Iroquois also because it uses so many components of the Huey. The aircraft went from design to flying in Vietnam in 2 years, when normally it would take like 4 years to come up with it. But because they used so many components of the Huey, they were able to get it through the system very quickly. But I understand there's a unverified translation of the Indian word Huey, which means dances with bullets. So, yeah, I got some great pictures here for you. Let's back up. Okay, here's a crash Huey. Woo. We lost over 4,000 Hueys in Vietnam. There was about 7,000, I'm sorry, not Hueys, helicopters, but most of which were Hueys. That was the icon of the war. It did everything. We used it for medevac. The Army found out they could hang weapons on it. We used it for resupply. If you can imagine, you're out in the field, maybe you're in battle, you're about out of ammo, you don't have any water, maybe you've got wounded, and you hear that noise. You hear it coming in the distance. We call that the sound of hope. And when you heard that helicopter, when you heard that very, very distinct sound of the Huey, you knew things were going to get a little bit better. So, well, don't unplug me now because it's yeah, but thank you. It's not today's technology, but thank you. So anyway, your day's going to get better. One thing that happened to us, though, was that even though we had a Red Cross on our helicopter, we were unarmed because of the Geneva Convention. We didn't carry any offensive weapons. We didn't resupply with ammunition, but we could resupply with food or medicine and things like that. But the bad guys, the North Vietnamese Army or the Viet Cong, they had a $500 reward for shooting down any American helicopter, whether it had the Red Cross or not, and they also got a medal to wear. Now, I would guess that $500 was sent home back to North Vietnam. I mean, what good's $500 in the jungle? But they did have quite an incentive for shooting down American helicopters, regardless of what it was. One thing they didn't shoot at very often, though, was a Cobra, because they knew that it would shoot back and it was very effective. But we also lost a lot due to accident, night, bad weather. In my unit, we lost 15 pilots and crew members. Half of those 15, 8, were lost due to accidents in night weather and bad weather. Some of you may have heard the term baby killer that's given to Vietnam veterans. Well, we were trying to save, not me personally, but our unit, the men that I flew with, we're trying to save the life of a Vietnamese baby that was very badly burned, like 85% of its body. The aircraft crashed. The medic was killed. This happened at night in bad weather. We sent 2 aircraft out to look for them. One of the aircraft commanders said, "This is too bad. We're going back." The other one says, "Hey, we're gonna keep looking for them." They crashed. We lost 2 helicopters that night and 5 men. So next time you hear somebody say that Vietnam veterans are baby killers, just think of that. And I'm not saying it never happened, but the South Vietnamese people were in a no-win situation. You can imagine you're in a village out in the middle of nowhere. Many of these people that lived in these villages never got more than a few miles from their home their entire life. And so the bad guys would come in and to the village, and they would say, we're gonna stash our weapons and our food and our medical supplies here, and if you don't let us do it, we're gonna cut off the head of your village elder. And what that means is that village elder is not gonna go to heaven or Valhalla or wherever they believe. So, oh no, don't cut off grandma's head, you can keep your stuff here, that's okay. And then 6 months later, the Americans come in and they find that cache. Okay, you're sympathizing with Viet Cong, huh? All right, well, we're gonna relocate you and we're gonna burn your village down. We're gonna take everything. So they were in a no-win situation. But again, we were there to help them. We were there to support them in any way that we could. We picked up civilians. I even picked up a wounded guard dog one night that had tripped a booby trap. But if we did crash or we damaged the helicopter and we made it back to base, anybody want to guess what our punishment was? Here's another helicopter. Try to be a little more careful this time. Okay? If you can imagine, we were 19, 20, 21-year-old pilots. Our crew members were generally about a year younger than us. And I'm a warrant officer, that was my rank. The Army needed helicopter pilots so badly and so quickly that they had a program where you go into the Army Warrant Officer Flight School right out of high school. So you graduated at 18 from high school, a year later you graduate at 19, you graduate from flight school, and you're flying helicopters in Vietnam. One of my best friends was our unit voting officer for 2 months before he realized he wasn't old enough to vote yet. In 1969, you had to be 21 to vote, and you even had to be 21 to buy a drink in the States. Well, the Army's pretty good about supplying us with adult beverages, so that was something that happened. More great pictures. My reasons for joining the Army. In 1968, I was 19 years old and I was draft eligible. If you were a full-time 4-year student in college, you were draft exempt. If you were married with at least one child, you were not part of the draft. I didn't have either one. I went to Ohio State for a year, was more concerned about where the parties were, not concerned enough about where the library was. And Ohio State said, you don't have the grades to go back. So knowing that I would probably be drafted, which I was, I went to each service. That was the intention. Army, by chance, was the first one I went to. They told me I was eligible for flight school, and it's where do I sign and when can I leave? Because if you can imagine, hey, we're going to teach you to be a helicopter pilot. That's like giving a 19-year-old kid a brand new Corvette, and we got a package over here we want you to pick up. We don't care how you get there. Just pick it up. You don't have to observe the speed limit. You don't even have to stay on the road if you want. Just get that package and bring it back. And yeah, if you crash, well, here's another Corvette. Try to be a little more careful. So that was how the Army got so many pilots into the service, dangling that carrot that you're going to be a helicopter pilot. We did receive absolutely the best training. It was very intensive. As warrant officer candidates, we were also getting officer development courses as well as training. And again, it was very, very intense. Our first 4 months were in Texas, 5 months were in Texas, last 4 were at Fort Rucker, Alabama. The first month of training, we didn't even see a helicopter. They were flying over all the time, but it wasn't for us. So the Army was training every 2 weeks now, 250 warrant officer candidates like myself, about 150 officer students, gentlemen who had already been through officer candidate school or ROTC. They were lieutenants, captains, majors, whatever. And then there was about 50 Vietnamese students that they were teaching because we eventually wanted them to take over the war effort. So if you add them up, that's about 450 every 2 weeks that we're starting the program. Now, out of my 250 class, only about 150 graduated. Some guys just couldn't pick up the aircraft or couldn't pick up flying the aircraft. Some struggled in the classroom. Some didn't want to do what was necessary to become an officer. So even with losing about 100 students, the Army was still graduating about 350 to 400. Still no. Okay, one thing. Nope. Let's see, where are we at here? Next thing in presentation. As Mr. Lloyd mentioned, I was wounded in Vietnam. I was on the night insecure mission. We had 3 seriously wounded soldiers, and we always went out. It was at night. The weather wasn't bad, but it was at night, and it was during the heat of battle. And again, that's the beauty of the Huey, that we could go into the heat of battle and pick up our wounded. We call it the golden hour, and I think the hospitals still call it the golden hour. If you can get your wounded to the hospital within an hour, they have a much better chance of surviving. Well, we had our Huey with our onboard medic, and I'm going to give you 5 tries, and I'll let you shout out. But I want to know what the percentage of survivability was if we got to them in our Huey with our onboard medic when they were still breathing. Now, to give you an idea, World War II in Korea, it was less than 50%. If you were seriously wounded in either of those 2 wars, you had less than a 50% chance. So somebody shout out a number. 90, go higher. 93. Higher than 93. 98%, whoever said it, you got it on the nose. 98% of the wounded that we picked up with that Huey and our onboard medics survived. Now, they may have lost limbs, but they did survive. So that was the reason we went out at night during the battle. That we had one fellow had a sucking chest wound, the other 2 were seriously wounded. The most vulnerable time for a helicopter is when you're coming in for a landing, when you're sitting on the ground, and when you take off. You need either airspeed or altitude or both. Well, when you're coming in to land, you don't have the airspeed or the altitude. When you're sitting on the ground, you don't have airspeed and altitude. When you're taking off, the same thing. Well, a lot of times the bad guys, when they saw the Red Cross, they would let us land because they knew we were going to take more souls on board. And then as we would come out, they would open up on us. And that's what happened to us that night. One round came through my door. The armored seat stopped it, but I got what was left of the bullet. It severed a nerve in my arm, sent me home. My medic told me later that I stopped the bullet before it hurt somebody. So that was good to know. But we were young and stupid. In order to be young and stupid, in order to be old and wise, you first have to be young and stupid. But again, it was that adrenaline rush. It was that we knew that you guys, how many Vietnam veterans right now? Okay? Most of you on the ground. Okay? We knew that you guys were depending on us. That's why us kids, us 19, 20, 21-year-olds, did the things we did. Sometimes we got away with it. Sometimes we didn't, because we knew you guys were depending on us. So, very proud of this outfit for the service. So, moving right along, a couple of myths about the Vietnam War, and especially for you younger folks, because again, I don't think you've been given the right story. About 2/3 of the men who served in Vietnam were volunteers, like myself. Now, yeah, I had the draft hanging over my head, but still, I could have gone to Canada. I wasn't going to do that. Approximately 70% of the men killed in Vietnam were volunteers. Okay, the fact that supposed fact that draftees were cannon fodder or blacks were cannon fodder is a pure myth. In fact, as far as blacks were concerned, the general population of the United States at the time of the Vietnam War was about 13.5% African American. Well, in Vietnam, only about 12.5% of those that were killed were African American. So actually, it was a little bit less. The average age of the infantrymen in Vietnam was 19. The myth, actually, it was 22. And the average infantryman in the South Pacific during World War II saw about 40 days of combat in 4 years. Now, that's average. In Vietnam, thanks to the helicopter, we could get them in and out of battle. 240 days of combat in 1 year was typical for them. So, gentlemen that perhaps were in Vietnam, anybody, I would like a show of hands. The Tet Offensive in 1968. How many think that it was a loss to the Americans? How many think it was a victory? Now, you got a few hands. Well, I would agree with you. Now, most times it's conceived as a loss. And the reason being, our military was telling the press, Walter Cronkite, for those of you of my age, who was a spokesperson of Nightly News, our military was telling, yeah, we got the bad guys, one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. You know, we're taken by it. And then the North Vietnamese, Viet Cong, they threw everything at us that they had. They wanted to overtake the city of Hue. They wanted to overtake Saigon, which is the capital of South Vietnam. Hue was the ancient imperial castle. And it was about a month and a half. But we kicked their butts, and it took them a year to recover. But the problem was, now the press says, whoa, wait a minute, we thought you guys were winning. Where did all this come from? You know, the American public says, yeah, bring their guys home, you know, this is ridiculous. And what we would do is we would find the bad guys, we would take over their territory, we would victory in battles, and then we would leave. And guess what? The bad guys would just come right back in. Same thing that's happening today in Afghanistan, Iran, and it just seems like we never learn. We just keep doing the same thing over and over. Yes, John?
If I could add a little bit regarding Tet and Huey, H-U-E is how it's spelled, Huey is how it's pronounced by the Vietnamese. There is a book out there, it's relatively new. Anyone interested in the general atmosphere of what was going on during Hue, during Tet, there's a book out there written by the same fellow that wrote Black Hawk Down, which ultimately ended up on the theater screen. And the title of the book is Hue, spelled H-U-E, 1968. And it is about the Battle of Hue, which was going on during Tet, Hue being I-Corps near the DMZ, about 30 miles to the south. All right, so if you're interested in that kind of history, that book is out there. If you're an Amazon Prime user, you can get it 2 days delivery for $20. I highly recommend it.
Okay, thank you, John. The helicopters, like I say, were all different missions. We had the big cargo carrying helicopters, but the icon of the war, like I say, was the Huey, and it was designed as a medevac helicopter. Any of you Vietnam vets, were you RTOs, radio telephone operators? Any of you? Okay. Okay. Because I was gonna use you, but we're gonna fly a mission. And again, I am so sorry that we don't have pictures. Maybe we'll get lucky and then we'll come up. So let's assume that I'm the aircraft commander of a medevac helicopter, and we've got a mission that has come in. We have urgent wounded. So what happens is we have what we call the first up aircraft. We have one helicopter that was always ready to go at a moment's notice. We would stay close to the aircraft, usually no more than 100 yards, so we could quickly run to the aircraft. But when a mission comes in, the crew chief, the medic, and the co-pilot would run to the aircraft. As the aircraft commander, I would go to the operations office where the radios were, and I would get a written mission sheet. We'd have the coordinates of where they were, no coding or anything. It was all in the clear. Hey, the bad guys knew what our frequencies were. They're shooting our guys. They know where they're at. You know, well, let's don't go with this BS of encoding. I want to know where you're at. Don't waste time. So as my crew is getting the aircraft started, I'm getting the mission sheet. I go to a map on the wall. I see the coordinates, and in the center is a string and a 360-degree compass. So I look for the coordinates and say it's up here. I take that string, I put it up here. That tells me my heading, because I got this 360 degrees. And then I take the string and I come down here, a horizontal line that tells me my distance. 10 kilometers away, I know I'm going to be there in about 5 minutes. So very, very quickly, I know what heading I need to take, and I know about how long it's going to take me to get there. There's a reason I want to know how long. When I have the mission sheet, I run to the aircraft. It's probably already started. The co-pilot may not even be strapped in yet. His primary job is to get that aircraft started. Don't waste your time putting on your seatbelt and your helmet. Just get that puppy started. As the aircraft commander, I jump in, put my seatbelts on, put my helmet on, grab the controls, and we're gone. And the co-pilot, that's usually when he's strapping in and everything. We're already on the go. We don't want to waste any time. So as soon as we get in the air, I want to try to get a hold of the guys on the ground. I have their radio frequency. And I'll call them, let's say, click 66, this is dust off 711. Inbound your position, about 05 minutes. 711, this is click 66, roger, 5 minutes. And I'll come back and I'll say, confirm you're wounded. I want to know how many. Now the guys in the back are listening to all this. They're listening to all these radio transmissions. So, confirm you're wounded. I've got two wounded, one head wound. Okay? Again, guys in the back are hearing this. So now the medic can be prepared for what he's going to get. So I roger him. Okay, understand 2 wounded. Give me a call when you can hear me. Remember how loud these things are? I'm at altitude. I'm at least 1,500 feet above the ground. We felt that was safe from small arms fire, 1,500 feet above the ground. Give me a call when you can hear me. So a couple minutes later, 71166, I hear you. Roger that, pop your smoke. And that's when I drop down to treetop level. And I'm doing 100, 110, 120 knots, 135 miles an hour. If they're into the trees, then I want to stay a little bit higher so I can see the smoke. If it's in a rather clear area, I'm down just a few feet off the ground. The closer I am to the ground, the faster I'm going, the smaller target I am. So when I see the smoke, I identify the color. Click 66, 711, I have yellow smoke. Roger, yellow smoke, that's us. One of the last days I flew, I called for smoke and 4 smokes came out. Okay? 2 reds, a yellow, and a green. Okay? Call them back. Okay, I got 2 reds, a yellow, and a green. And they say, we're the green. Okay, thanks. And now I avoid the 2 reds and yellow because now I know where the bad guys are. So I go in and land with the green smoke. So when I identify the color, I know it's my guys, and I go right to the landing zone. There's no looking around. I wonder where, how are we going to go in? I want to know from him what direction was your last enemy contact? How long ago was it? Because I want to avoid that direction. So I go in and I land. My guys in the back know how vulnerable a target we are. The guys on the ground know how vulnerable a target we are. They don't want any more people shooting at them than already have. Seconds on the ground. 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. Starting to get real nervous because literally sometimes the wounded are just thrown on the aircraft and we're out. Those of you that are helicopter pilots know that you have a collective pitch in your left hand. Okay, that's your up and down. When we would come in and land, we didn't put the pitch down. We held it, just whatever it took to land, because now all I got to do is just give it a little pop, and I'm taking off. That's that extra half a second or so that I don't have to feel it coming up. Okay, I'm already 90% of the power to take off. So just little things like that, and just to illustrate that. Again, one of the last missions that I flew, I never did it before, and I don't know why I did it, and I never did it after that. But as we're taking off out of an insecure landing zone, picked up a couple of wounded, and I took a look out my window, looked back at the LZ, the landing zone we had just come out of, and a mortar round hit right where we were sitting. Now those of you that are familiar with mortar rounds, it's lob. That means while we were sitting on the ground, that mortar round was in the air. As soon as I saw it hit, I got on the radio, called the guys on the ground. I was still on their frequencies. Everybody okay? Yeah, we're fine. So we get our patients to the hospital. But seconds on the ground were that critical. And again, the guys in the back of the aircraft knew that. The guys on the ground knew it. When we would come in to land, the soldier holding his rifle over his head is saying, land here. Okay? If I put the nose of the aircraft right up to him, I mean as close as I am to John, I know that that's a relatively secure place. If he's not confident enough to stand up there like that, okay, I don't want to land anywhere else. That's about as confident as I can get. But when they do it right, and the guys on the ground always did it right, when I land here with my nose as close to him, here's my patients here, here's my patients here, they're in the cargo compartment, and we're out. And literally, just seconds. Sometimes we couldn't land on the ground. We had to drop a hoist with about a 250-foot cable down through the trees. Sitting ducks, just like at the county fair. We're sitting over the trees. The bad guys may not be able to see us, but they darn well can hear us, and they'll shoot at us. We lost a lot of good aircraft that way. One of our gentlemen that was the first cab medevac pilot that's in the American Huey 369 organization, had a hoist mission. The first time they went in, the door gunner, the first cab had door guns. Door gunner was hit. The aircraft was shot up so badly they lost hydraulics. They had to go back to base and land. They got another helicopter, got another door gunner, went back. This time the co-pilot gets wounded, again, they lose hydraulics. They have to go back to land from other emergency landing. Commanding officer of his unit says, no more. We've lost 2 aircraft. We've got 2 seriously wounded. We're not going out anymore. About an hour or 2 later, the commanding officer of the guys on the ground shows up. My guys are dying out there. You got to go get them. You got to go get them. Art Jacobs for the 369 guys. That's who I'm talking about. If that's my broker, tell him to call me back later. So anyway, Art says, I know where the LZ is, sir. If I can get a volunteer crew together, I'll go out and get you in. So Art's commanding officer said, I won't tell you that you can't go, but I'd rather you didn't. So they get their crew together, they get a 3rd helicopter, they go out again to bring their wounded up on the hoist. This time Art is wounded. The aircraft is shot up so badly they crashed. Now they have to be careful. Okay? Absolute true story. I documented it in a book. There are 7 books over at our trailer. If any of you are interested in reading about the missions that we flew, most of them are first-person accounts, absolutely true, no embellishment. And each book stands alone. They're $20 each, $5 each with American Huey 369. Real quick, I just wanted to mention something. I get to do some school presentations. I had a great uncle who served in World War I. He was a trained photographer and writer by the Army. And he was stationed in Paris when the armistice was signed, okay, November the 11th, 1918. And because I'm the official, unofficial family historian, I have all his letters that he wrote home. And I have a letter that he wrote home the day after the armistice. And he talks about them parading through the streets of Paris. And all the French women want a kiss from the American soldier, and so on and so forth. And it's just really a unique letter. He talks about the women who drink wine and smoke cigarettes without anybody saying anything. If you can imagine, how that could have been. He says everybody was zigzagging. I'm pretty sure that was his word for drunk. But he ends the letter, and this is home to his family. He wasn't married at the time. He tells his parents, I won't know how to act when I get home again. And I think that's true for any war veteran. You've seen things, you've done things that you shouldn't have to see, you shouldn't have to do. You have put your life on hold. While you're serving, your buddies are going to college or they're getting married and having families and starting their careers. And you sacrifice 2, 3, 4 years of your life for the service of your country. And again, he said he wouldn't know how to act when he got home again. You come back and everything has changed. And then you realize, no, it's still the same. I'm the one that's changed. And so my comment to you is, when I first started, I said, there was a time when people wouldn't listen to a Vietnam veteran because we were blamed with losing the war. Well, America brought all the Vietnam veterans home in 1973. South Vietnam did not fall until 1975.